Imagine walking down a quiet street at night when you hear a sudden, loud crash right behind you. Instantly, you flinch. Your shoulders tense, your breath catches, and your heart rate accelerates. Long before you even realize what made the noise, your body has already reacted. That split-second, involuntary response is coordinated entirely by an organ weighing roughly 3 pounds, a wrinkled mass of tissue floating in a protective bath of cerebrospinal fluid. The brain is a highly organized structure, divided into many distinct components that serve specific and vital functions. To understand our most complex behaviors, from the quick flinch of a startle to the deep recall of a memory, we have to map out the geographic hardware of our own heads. This map begins at the brainstem, regulating autonomic functions like breathing. Behind it, the cerebellum fine-tunes movement and balance. Above sits the cerebrum, divided into 2 hemispheres. Each contains 4 lobes: frontal for planning, parietal for sensations, temporal for hearing, and occipital for vision. These large geographic sections are easy to see, but they do not function alone. They rely on complex relationships to process something as intricate as an emotion or a memory. To see how that communication works, we have to look past these broad anatomical lobes and zoom all the way down to the microscopic surface of the cerebral cortex. This tissue contains approximately 86 billion specialized nerve cells called neurons, which are supported and nourished by an equally vast network of glial cells. A single neuron consists of 3 main components: branch-like dendrites to receive signals from the environment, a central cell body to interpret that information, and a long cable called an axon to transmit the outgoing message. Every detail of a neuron's physical shape is perfectly optimized for its single, vital purpose: receiving and transmitting information throughout the body. When a neuron is activated, it generates an electrical impulse called an action potential that travels rapidly down the length of its axon. However, the network has a physical break. Neurons do not actually touch. When that electrical pulse reaches the end of the axon, it hits a microscopic gap called a synapse. To bridge this gap, the electrical pulse triggers the release of chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. These molecules drift across the synapse and bind to receptors on the receiving cell, changing its electrical state to trigger a new impulse. Every human thought, action, and feeling is the result of this exact electrochemical chatter happening billions of times per second. We can apply this microscopic action to the macrogeography of the brain by returning to the sound of that crash in the dark alley. Auditory data from the crash enters the ear and is routed directly to the temporal lobe for sound processing. Before you are even aware of the sound, a structure called the thalamus, acting as a sensory gatekeeper, intercepts the signal and routes it deep into the limbic system. The signal hits the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm bell. It instantly floods your body with a fear response, elevating your heart rate before a conscious thought has even formed. Seconds later, the frontal lobe catches up. It analyzes the data, realizes the sound was just a falling garbage can, and sends a signal to suppress the amygdala's panic. You take a deep breath. This complex negotiation between primitive emotion and advanced logic happens entirely in the space of milliseconds. While these pathways seem automatic, they are not fixed. The brain is a dynamic organ that can change its design throughout your life. This is due to a foundational rule of neuroplasticity. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Every time you repeat an action or learn a new skill, your neurons physically reinforce and thicken their connections. The more a pathway is used, the stronger the communication between those neurons becomes. Your brain orchestrates everything you experience, but your experiences are continuously reshaping the physical structure of your brain.